Steve here with Table Rock Tea Company. Well, I have owned my Honda CT125 Trail Cub for a few months now, and it's been an absolute joy to ride. It's been a great bike. This is a bike that I plan on keeping for the rest of my life. And yeah, if you saw my review video on who this bike is for, you'll see why this just fits me like a glove. So now that I've ridden it for several months, we are coming up now on 600 miles. I'm at 597. So it is time, according to the owner's manual, for the first round of maintenance, the first oil change and that kind of thing. Now I'm going to do a few things in this video, and I believe that this is probably one of the most important videos, or one of the most important things you can do for your bike, especially this first 600 miles, because that's the break-in period. They say too, like, don't accelerate for the first 300 miles, too fast and stuff like that. You're just trying to get everything broken in. So at that 600 mile mark, the first sort of maintenance, you're going to be dealing with a few things. Now, it just deals with oil in the manual, but I'm going to do a few other things as well. I am going to be changing the oil. I'm going to be replacing the plug, the original plug, with a gold plug magnetic. You've probably read about those, and I'll explain that as we get to it. I am going to be looking at the chain tension, because that gets, broken in as well. And I'm going to lube the chain. I'll check the tire pressure. And I'm going to also replace the oil filter, even though it doesn't say to do that. On the 2023 models, they do have a little oil filter. So I'll show you all that. I'm also going to put links in the description to all of the products that I'm using. Now, normally I'm a pretty frugal guy, and I try to use cheap stuff. But again, this bike I bought with 0 miles. I want to keep it for the rest of my life. So I'm buying Honda, Honda dealer factory stuff. So again, it's not that expensive. It's not a ton of stuff, but I'll put all those links in the description. So as always, like and subscribe. In the owner's manual, this is starting on page 45. You can go through here and it'll tell you the different maintenance things at the different points in time. So we are right here on the very first one on miles, 600 miles. And as you go, there's not much that you really need to do, but then it gets right here to engine oil, and that says to replace that. Okay, so that's what we're certainly going to do. Again, I'm also going to look at the filter as well. And it'll say clean on the filter, but I just want to go ahead and put in something that I already know that I like. Again, it's going to be a Honda filter, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in. And then if you flip over the pages here, page 46, it's going to show you right here the drivetrain should be every 300 miles that you check that, and I'll show you how you check the tension, and we'll lube that up as well. And then inspecting the clutch system. I really don't know how to inspect the clutch system, to be perfectly honest, but I have not had any issues with my clutch. It's been working just fine. So then again, in the manual, they have this little maintenance schedule here. Again, kudos to Honda, right? Because here we're looking, they have it all the way up to 68,000 miles. That's a lot. I expect to get 100,000 out of the bike, so maybe add another page or whatever, but here we are, 600 miles. I've got my odometer at 597. Today is October 8th that I'm doing this. I wrote that I did it, and just on the notes, I'm going to be adding the gold plug magnetic, oil plug thing. So that is, I'll explain that in just a second, and then a new filter. So that's it as far as the manual goes. Here's a quick scan of the products that I'll be using. Again, these are all pro Honda parts and products, except for the gold plug. So we've got the GN4 4-stroke motorcycle oil 10W30. That's what's recommended. I've got the Honda chain lube, and then the filter. This thing, look how small this filter is. It's like a little, like a dollhouse filter. It's super weird. But anyway, that's a Honda filter right there. Again, I will be putting a link to in the description to all of these parts, and then we've got the gold plug magnetic that I'll be replacing the original oil plug with. One thing that is recommended is before you change the oil to go ahead and let the bike run for a little bit, which I've done. That of course lets everything get heated up, and it lets the oil flow a little more freely. Of course you don't want to burn yourself, but and then as far as what we're going to be doing, a couple of things here. The oil filter is in here. We're going to be dealing with that there. And then the oil drain is going to be, get under here, it's going to be this guy right there. And that's what we'll loosen. We'll put a drain pan under it, loosen that up, let all that drain out, and then we're going to be replacing this with the gold plug. Just by way of comparison, the original plug is a 12mm socket and the gold plug is a 17, so very different. One thing I like to do before I actually open the plug below and drain that is I like to make sure that this, which is the filling area, basically the filling plug combination dipstick as well, I like to make sure that that is open up to allow some air in there so that everything can drain out easily, that you don't get any kind of like air locks. So I'll just leave that there but loose so that air can go in but no dirt and garbage can go in. All right, so this should be pretty straightforward here. Get this set on here. And there we go. Loosen that up. Still a little tight. These are really pretty easy to get to. At least they're pretty good clearance. But the first couple of turns are a little tight. But then I like to try to get it with my finger here if I can. Usually I'll be wearing a glove because otherwise this oil's going to spill all over my hand, but that's life. Yeah. All right, so you're going to run into a little bit of tight spots here and there, I suppose. That's probably pretty normal. Don't let that freak you out too much. And again, then we should get the oil coming right out here pretty soon. All right. Nothing like wasting time watching somebody change oil. There you go. So that's all coming out. Not too bad, actually not too messy at all. And we'll just let that drain for a little bit. I want to go ahead and take a look at the plug. I'll show you that here in a second. Yeah, this is that. Again, I will save this and put it into my parts baggie for the original parts. But then this is going to be replaced with this guy right here. And this. So with the oil plug still out and this dripping, now we can go ahead and change the oil filter. I led you guys astray, I think, in the beginning. I think I said it was in here. It's not. It's in this little section here. This is an 8mm socket, and you're just going to go ahead. Probably good to have an extension like I've got there. And we'll just do this little 8mm socket. Too bad. It's a little tight in here. It's a little hard with the kicks or the brake lever right there. And hopefully this will just hand tighten out of here. This, by the way, if you don't know, is just a cosmetic cover. So if you take these 3 bolts out, which I actually did as I was making this video, there's nothing there. It's just a cover. So I'm not really sure why Honda did that. It's a little frivolous in my opinion, but hey, whatever. Looks nice, I guess. So yeah, so you'll go ahead and pull these 2 bolts out, and there you go. So there was a spring, obviously, that came out. You don't want to lose that down your pan. That's going to go right in the middle here. And again, we're going to keep all these parts nice and tidy. Go ahead and clean them off with a rag, but make sure you don't lose that spring. That's going to be fairly important. And we'll just clean this off. Inspect. There's an O-ring right here, which you're going to want to inspect for any kind of damage. You're definitely not going to want to bunger that up. You're certainly not going to want to lose it either. Okay, so again, that's the O-ring there. I'm sure they have replacements for that as well. Now, I think the tricky part's going to be fishing this thing out of here. Normally, I would have like a surgical tool, since I used to work in the OR. I'd use a hemostat or something like that. Next, we'll go ahead and put in our gold plug. And what I was going to explain to you about the gold plug is that this has a magnetic tip to it. So the theory is, and I guess it's not just quite theory, we'll find out at the next oil change, is that any kind of little metal filings or impurities, metallic impurities in the oil, or just from, you know, the wear of the engine or whatever, will get captured by this tip. So when you change it out, you can clean it, and that way it's not kind of floating around and acting like sandpaper in your engine. So anyway, we'll just go ahead and install this plug, and then after that we'll go ahead and fill it with the oil. Now we are going to take this oil dipstick out and clean that, make sure that's dry. It's going to have, I believe, let me take my glasses off here, there should just be, right in this section, that's your fill level, so right in here, okay? So you don't want to overfill, and that's why you kind of want to have this dry, so that when you go ahead and put the dipstick back in, that you know where that oil is, and it's not just left over from the previous oil change. I'm also going to go ahead and carefully clean around the rim, making sure that I wipe to the outside so I don't get any junk in there. And then we'll just go ahead, use our funnel, and fill up the oil. Now, it's cheaper if you buy this by the gallon. I believe that it takes 1 quart. Now, since I've replaced the filter, the oil filter, I'm not sure how much it'll take. So I'm just going to go a little bit at a time and keep checking with the dipstick. And again, this is that Honda GN4 10W30 for motorcycles. The last two things I'm going to check out for my first 600-mile maintenance are going to be the chain slack. I'm going to wear gloves for that because it's going to be dirty. And then also make sure that the tire pressure is okay, which you really should check before each ride, but I'm pretty bad about that. But I'll definitely check it at this 600-mile mark anyway. On both of those, the information is right here, which is really cool. So again, kudos to Honda for doing that. And I will zoom in on this in just a second and show you what we're looking for the chain slack and what we are looking for tire pressure. So this is the information we're talking about right here. On the tire pressure, the front tire should be 25 PSI, rear tire 33. And then on the free play on the chain, there's a nice diagram how you do that. Essentially, it's from the top to the bottom, as far as in the middle of the chain, how much it goes up, how much you can pull it down, and that should be 1 1/4 inches or 30 millimeters. If it's too slack, you'll get chain slap and all of that. If it's too tight, you'll have trouble with your drivetrain. So I'll show you how to do that in just a second. To measure the chain slack, I have slid a ruler behind the chain at the midpoint, and you can see at rest or at the low point, it is 220. This is just resting on the ground, by the way, but we're at 220 millimeters, and then I move it up, and it goes to 180. Okay, so I'm going to have to take a little bit of slack out of that because it's really 40 millimeters, and it's supposed to be 30. So there's 220, 180. To do your chain adjustment, you're going to go ahead and put the bike on the center stand so that the rear wheel is free, so that it's not touching the ground. So you'll put weight on the front. I put my gas can on there so it'll tilt the bike up a little bit forward because I've got this this box on the back. But once you do that, then you're going to loosen this here. This is, I believe, a 14 millimeter. You're going to loosen that. You're going to come around to the other side and loosen this one as well. Then you are going to go ahead and, this one's like a 21, I believe, 21 millimeter. And that's going to let the wheel be able to move back and forth on the fork. And so after that, you are going to loosen this set screw on both sides. This is a 10, and then this one right here is a 12. So after you loosen these up, then what you'll do is you'll tighten this inner one, and what that's going to do is basically push the tire or the wheel back along the fork and tension up your chain. You will want to make sure that you keep track of these little notches. Honda did a nice job putting those in, because you're going to want to back this up the same amount on both sides so that the wheel stays in true alignment. So now I've adjusted my chain tension, and you can see that this back plate is right just below the 4th mark. And going around the other side, you can see same thing, just below the 4th mark. So those things are even, that's great. And now checking the chain again, put our ruler there, and you can see that it is hanging out at, what is it, 190, right? And then I push it, and it'll go up to, sorry, that's at the middle of the chain. So anyway, we got 180, 160, 190, up to 160. So that's 30 millimeters of play, and that's about what you want. Final thing to do besides checking the tire pressure, which I won't video because you guys know how to do that, is this chain lube. So we'll go ahead and use that. This has chain lube with Molly and PTFE for superior lubrication. Again, I'll put a link to that, but we're just gonna hit it just lightly along the chain. And there you go. Just get it worked in. You can run the bike and move the chain, but I'm not going to be putting that much on it, to be honest. So we're just going to kind of hit it at different key spots. So that's it as far as the first routine maintenance 600-mile checkup goes on the Honda Trail CT125. Again, I think this is the most important maintenance one you can do. That first 600 miles is probably the hardest part for the bike, because that's breaking in everything from new. So yeah, things are going to start getting adjusted. After this, you know, the bike should kind of stabilize in a way, and then everything's kind of routine. So definitely don't pass up, don't slack on that 600-mile first maintenance and oil change for sure. Thanks again for watching. Stay tuned to see what else is brewing here at Table Rock Tea Company.